Hello everyone, how y'all doing? Today we're going to be reviewing Streets of Rage 4. Streets of Rage 4 was released in April 2020 and is a continuation of the classic Streets of Rage series. Published and developed by Dotemu, Streets of Rage 4 is supposed to be a loving tribute to classic beat-em-ups, but does it succeed in its goal? Let's find out. Also, apologies if I get any names wrong in this video, I do think in slow motion, so it's very bad sometimes. Anyways, let's get this ball rolling and start with the story. The story itself is very easy to follow. The main bad guy, Mr. X, had a set of twins, the Y twins, who have inherited his villainy and fondness of one-letter names. Now it's up to your clan of characters new and old to kick ass and move fast to stop the twins. And that's pretty much what you need to do in the game. Overall, the story is very simple and ironically straightforward, which is great for a game like this because you don't have to think too hard about the story as you're kicking ass. You can literally pick up and play and not miss much, which could also be seen as a bad thing though. But I think in this instance the gameplay is more of a focus than the actual story. Then again, the classic games had a similar structure anyway, so anyways, let's quickly go over voice acting now. In terms of voice acting, there's very little, as all storyline cutscenes are comic book-esque, which I quite like as it adds style and it gives the game time to breathe. The only voice lines you do here is when you choose Streets of Rage 4 characters, which kind of gives the characters a little bit more personality. Speaking of characters, all the returning characters have aged wonderfully, as they're all built like fridges, and for a game like this it's great to use them. As you keep playing the game, soon enough you can unlock the classic characters as well, meaning you can play as any character from any of the games. And these classic characters are actually usable in this game, which is fantastic. They do have less combat options than the Streets of Rage 4 characters though, but it doesn't mean they're useless. Even with these setbacks, they are all still very fun to play with and I still play around with them even though I've got all the characters. And now let's get on to the juicy part, the gameplay. In terms of gameplay, this game is amazing, mostly due to the new mechanics. Firstly, every character has a star move, a flashy move that wrecks anyone close, but be careful, these moves are very limited. If you use it too early or do what I do and just miss entirely, you'll have to find another star in the level, and within these levels there's only like one star pickup, so you have to be careful, which allows you to sort of like think about what you're doing a little bit more. Like for example, you're surrounded, do you use your star move then to get them all off you? Or do you save it for the upcoming boss that could prove to be more difficult? I find it quite interesting as it's like such a small addition to the entire franchise that it's added so much strategy within it. It's really cool. Another cool thing in the game is special moves. These moves are performed by using a single button press or maybe a button press plus a direction, most of which do look pretty cool, but they also use health. But on your health bar it shows a green health bar instead, meaning when you hit enemies you can get this health back. But if you get hit in this time frame, you do lose all that health and more health on top of that, which adds a sort of cool like risk versus reward sort of thing within the game. Also, the one button press special move has invincibility frames. Speaking of invincibility frames, the game itself mentions this. In the pause menu it has a little section about this as well, where it tells you all the controls and all the invincibility frames and everything you need to know, all in like 2 or 3 slides of information, which is very easy to digest. I personally would advise learning all these invincibility frames, as doing so and doing it properly is so addicting, as you can just dodge attacks and just do massive combos afterwards. It's so good. What isn't good though is when enemies hit you off screen, which happens more than you may think. I would personally suggest not fighting near the edges of the screen, but then again it could be just me being terrible at the game, who knows. Here's a quick tip for you if you do plan on playing this game. If you're thrown or launched in the air, you can actually land on your feet. When you're about to land on the floor, just press the jump button and you will take no damage if you're thrown. It may take a few tries to get this right though, but when you do master it the game seems a lot more fast paced. Anyways, on to the next good thing, the co-op play. Playing with friends is absolutely fantastic, and I personally would advise doing so, hence why most of this footage is in co-op play. Playing with friends opens up a lot more potential within the gameplay, as you can combo from each other, you can also hit enemies off the ground into more combos from someone else. It's amazing. It just adds to the overall chaos within the levels, and most enemies don't stand a chance most of the time. An amazing aspect of this is that most characters can synergize well with other ones, so trying to figure out who synergizes well with another character is always a treat to sort of figure out. Make sure you turn off friendly fire mode off though, because Jesus Christ, you don't want to be doing these combos on your friends when you're trying to work together. But yeah, if you can get some friends to play this game with you, I would highly recommend it. It's so much more fun when you've got people around you. Next up is the soundtrack. As you play different levels, different soundtracks will play, and you have a choice between the new Streets of Rage 4 soundtrack or the classic Streets of Rage 2 soundtrack. The Streets of Rage 4 soundtrack I do find pretty good. It really helps set the tone, also makes you like really hyped towards what's going on screen. But in my humble opinion, the Streets of Rage 4 soundtrack pales in comparison to the Streets of Rage 2 version. I say that because I literally grew up on Streets of Rage 2, so it's kind of unfair really. As I sort of grew up on the classic soundtrack, it's hard for me to like have no bias between them, unfortunately. If you've played this game and obviously prefer the new version of the soundtrack, please let me know, I'd like to hear your opinion. Speaking of the classics, a nice little option is that you can change the health pickups, meaning the look of them. One set of options is the apple and the chicken, which have been the prominent pickup within the entire series itself. See, I really like this idea. Just the fact that the developers added all these nostalgic options just shows the love of the franchise. It just shows they paid attention to the source material and actually tried to make this game cater to classic and new players at the same time, which unfortunately you don't see too much of nowadays. The next section is all about the DLC for the game. Firstly, it adds so much to the vanilla game. It adds 3 new characters to the original game. Max, the beefy brute wrestler man. There's Shiva, who just by looking at him you know he's overpowered. And finally, Estelle, the very persistent cop. As you've noticed, every one of these DLC characters is a boss in the main story, and thankfully they're all really good to play as. And finally, there's a secret unlockable character within this DLC. It is none other than boxer turned bartender, Roo the Kangaroo. More about Roo later on, but for now, let me tell you about survival mode. Basically, survival mode is a wave-by-wave simulation that either has a random or a set weekly setting. Every wave has a set amount of enemies, and the higher the wave count, the harder it gets. Sounds simple enough, right? But there's also another aspect to this mode. A chaotic aspect, to say the least. At the end of each wave you get a choice of a set of perks. On random setting the perks are random, and on weekly these are the same every try. These perks can stack, and after a few good perks you can just see how crazy this game can get. Of course you have your simple attack up and defense up, but you can also add elemental damage to most of your attacks, so in between waves you have another choice to make. Picking good perks is mandatory though. As the continuous difficulty ramps up, you can just see the difference between wave 1 and wave 20, it's really good. But it never seems unfair because the game gives you the tools to be able to deal with these sort of threats. In this game mode you only get 1 life, and now the score bonuses give you star moves, not lives. Another aspect of this game mode is randomised weapons too. Like for example, have you ever wanted to hit someone with a fish in this game? Well, now you can. These weapons have their own attributes, and even some of them have their own little elemental damage too. In this DLC you can also unlock alternate moves for every character in the game. As you play through the survival mode you do get a score, in which at the end of each survival playthrough it does convert into XP, and as you rack up this XP you can unlock new moves for every character in the game, which adds loads of replayability for the DLC and the story as you unlock new moves for everyone, so you can like tinker with movesets even more, as you can just see which moves work best in certain situations, etc. Which I find really cool because in certain situations it changes how a character plays entirely. I would definitely recommend getting this DLC with the game as it adds so much more to the vanilla game. Plus with this DLC you do also get a practice mode. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of character highlights, just basically highlighting any characters I personally enjoyed playing as or any characters I thought were really good in a team setting. Also in the comments let me know if you want me to do any more character highlights for this game, as this game's really good to sort of mess around with all the characters. Either way, a character that I would definitely recommend playing as would be Adam. He is a returning character from Streets of Rage 1, and during his absence it looks like he's been hitting the gym and breaking limbs, as his moveset is heavy hitting but quick. he can just punt kick an enemy across the screen with ease. He can also cover that distance in round about the same time. So you're just consistently on the move and just breaking people in half. It's amazing. For a beginner, I can't recommend Adam enough. But you do have to unlock him though. But unlocking him just means you gotta play through the story, which is easy enough. Also, the dude wears sunglasses at all times, so it's obviously cooler than the rest of the roster, right? Next up is Roo the Kangaroo. Thanks to the DLC, his Streets of Rage 3 version is playable. To unlock him, here's what you need to do. On the start screen, you need to hold the attack and up button together, and then press start. Then, go straight into the story. Roo should appear on the character select screen. Select Roo and then finish the level with him to unlock the character. Roo himself is a combo monster. As many of his moves hit numerous times, the combo count goes up in the hundreds straight away. Roo is more of a DPS than an actual full damage character. He's also really good at stun locking the enemy for anyone else to just jump in. But in the DLC survival mode, Roo can get even stupider. Giving Roo any elemental effect on his moves in this game mode is a sight to behold, I'll tell you that for free. And due to his moves hitting numerous times, the elemental effect hits many times. Basically, Roo can make a 1v1 look like a fireworks display, and that is fully worth seeing. Speaking of displays, one of the issues I've seen with this game is the retro levels. Some of the 8-bit levels or the 8-bit sprites can be hard to look at sometimes, so if you do have sensitive eyes to that sort of thing, please take that in mind, as in the survival mode you can have a random chance of having a retro background. But in the story, the retro boss battles are optional. Getting to these retro boss battles is pretty easy. You just need to find a taser and an arcade machine. Just use the taser on the arcade machine and you'll be teleported to a retro boss battle. Doing these boss battles can give you a full heal or just another star move, which I find is a really nice way to pay homage to the classic games. So to finally sum it all up, this game is amazing. Very few setbacks and a lot of good game design and throwbacks to the classic games, whilst also adding something new. The co-op player is as good as ever, the game runs smooth as butter, and the character designs are really well done. But to answer the question I asked earlier, does Streets of Rage 4 serve as a perfect love letter to the series? Well, yeah, I've been sucking this game off for about 12 minutes now. What I'm trying to say is this: if you like beat 'em ups, you have to play this game. If you've enjoyed any other Streets of Rage game before this, definitely give this game a go, as it is, in my opinion, the best in the series. I think that all about wraps it up for this one. Thank you for making it this far into the video. Feel free to leave in the comments your thoughts about Streets of Rage 4, and also like the video, as it allows me to know if I'm doing a good job or not. And I hope to see you in the next video. Take care, and adios.